Okay, so let's take a look at what our database is going to look like, and let's talk about database relationships. So this is a website I like to use. It's called drawsql.app. I will link up this diagram somewhere in that resources folder so you can actually take a look at it and see the live link here. And I'll also add some kind of image that you can reference. But this website basically allows me to draw up my database and list out all the tables that I want, show all the attributes in the tables, and even connect the data so I can visualize the database connections and the relationships. So that's what we're going to cover in this video, is going to be database relationships. And as I reference this, I'll actually go through all of these tables as we go through this course, and we'll slowly start building this out. So relationships are simply a way of connecting database tables. So typically, if we were to store data in one table like a user profile, we would want to store our projects in a different table so that way they can be separated, but we need a way of connecting them, and we also need a way of defining what that relationship is. So let's say we have a profile connected to a project, and that project needs to be connected to a review of some sort, but that review also needs to be written by a user. So there's going to be multiple types of relationships we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and pull up some more pictures that I have here. So I'm going to pull up this picture and we'll talk about the 3 relationships I want to reference right now. Now, these are going to be the most common relationships we're going to work with. The first one is a one-to-one relationship. This basically means that one table can be connected to another table, and there can only be a one-way relationship. So one example would be if we had a user model. So let's imagine this is our table for a user. We're storing basic user information like emails, passwords, and so on. And let's say we wanted to extend this model. So we wanted to add in like a profile picture, maybe like a bio link and so on. But instead of actually modifying the user model, we could just create another table and call it user profile or something like that and connect it via one-to-one relationship. So this means that one user can have one profile and one profile can only have one user. So if we were to look up this mockup here we have a user, so username, email, first name, last name, and so on. And then we have a profile, which basically duplicates that information, but then we extend it by adding social links and so on. So instead of modifying this, we just create a one-to-one relationship, and there we go. So the next one is probably going to be the most common relationship you'll see, and this is probably the easiest one to understand. So this is a one-to-many relationship. So in this case, let's go ahead and take a look at our profile. So a profile, this is a user profile, can have multiple projects. So if you create an account on a website, you should be able to have multiple projects. Let's say you have project A, B, and C. So you build out an e-commerce website, a social network. One profile should be allowed to have multiple projects here. Now, there can be many projects connected to one profile. So the name is one-to-many. So let's pull up that diagram again, or that picture, and let's look at this. So this is your profile. And then you have multiple projects. So one profile, many projects, and then many projects can be connected to one profile. Now, many-to-many relationship, this is one you might have to see more in example, but it basically means that there is a two-way connection here. So let's say we had some kind of tags, and these were like skills for a specific project. So let's say you created a project 1, 2, and 3. And these projects, you just wanted to list out maybe like the stack that you use. So we can have a tag for React, a tag for Django, and JavaScript. Now, it wouldn't make sense to create the tag of React for this project and then another tag of React, and you're just duplicating it. So what if we created one tag here, and project A or project 1 can have the tag of React, and project 2 can also have the tag of React. And React can be connected to multiple projects, while multiple projects can have multiple tags. So that is a many-to-many relationship. It means that there is no one connection. They're not actually bind to each other. They can go and connect to multiple tables. It's just some weird kind of connection that we're going to have to see in examples. So let's look at what this looks like in the database here. So let me zoom out here really quick and move to the next picture. And in this picture, we're going to try modeling what this looks like in database tables. So again, we see another representation. We see a project that can have multiple reviews. And if we were to look at what actually happens in the database here, we would have a projects table and we would have a reviews table. So the projects table has its typical attributes. It has its ID, title, description, and so on. Now the review table would have its ID, the body, maybe the actual review that somebody is writing, the relationship to maybe the user that wrote that review. But in this case, how we connect these two tables is by automatically generating or even manually creating another column here for the parent ID. So in this case, the parent is going to be a project here. So when we create a project, it's going to be given an ID. And then once a review is created and connected to a particular project, we can see the project's ID being held in the reviews table. So now when we try to actually query the parent to a particular review, we know where it's at. So in this case, this project right here has 2 reviews. We can see the ID of 1 right here and right here. So that is how the connection is made. We simply store an ID of the parent in the child table. Now let's go ahead and look at a many-to-many relationship. So in this case, we kind of have that same list right here. And in this example, we can see multiple tags connected to multiple projects here. Didn't put arrows the other way, but we know that that's a 2-way relationship. So in the database, unlike a many-to-one relationship where we can simply connect it by a parent ID, what we need here is something called an intermediary table. Now Django does this for us, so we don't have to worry about creating this table. But once we create this relationship, we're going to have a projects table and we are going to have a tags table. Now automatically there is going to be a table created that simply stores the relationship. In this case, it's called an intermediary table and it would be named something like projects_tags. So we know that this is a table to score tags in projects. And what this table would do, every time we make this relationship, it would store a record of it. So if project 1 had the tag of this right here, so whatever tag that is, let's say this is React and it has the ID of 1, we would simply create a record that creates the project ID and the tag ID. So let's actually look at this. So we know project number 2 is going to have tag number 1 or with the ID of 1. So we're simply storing that relationship and that's how it's made. So that table is designed simply to store that. We don't have to worry about creating it. I just want to give you the backend and let you know what's actually happening here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and actually build out our first model or relationship. We already have one model, so we'll create that relationship. And that is going to be the review table and then the tag table. So let's close this out. And I'm going to open up my text editor. Let's go to the models.py file. And down here, we're just going to create another model. So in this case, we're going to create a class here, and this is going to be called review. And we're going to inherit from models.model. And let's continue to make the fields here, and then we'll actually add that relationship. So what does the review model need? In this case, we need to connect it to the owner. So we'll just do owner, and we don't have a profile table yet, so we'll just comment that out. We also need a project, which we're not going to create that connection just yet, so we'll connect that like that. We'll do this in a second. And we also need a body. So that's going to be the write-up of what the actual review is if somebody wants to leave some text here. And in this case, let's go ahead and just get this text field right here. So we'll paste that in for the body, and we can leave that blank. We should allow a review without actual text because we're also going to have some kind of rating system with it. So we have a body here. And we also want to have a value. So we have the written version of it and then a value. And in this case, we are going to use the char field. So let's just take that right here. And we want to give the user only 2 options here. We don't want them actually writing a value. So what I'm going to do here is create a tuple. And we're just going to say vote_type. And let's go ahead and create 2 options here. So the actual value is going to be here. And then we can, actually, I just need to put this in parentheses. So we get the value, and this is going to be an upvote, and then the string version of that. In this case, we're just going to say upvote. So we can reference it in the database by this, but this is what it's going to be displayed as. Now I can add a comma here. Let's go ahead and duplicate this, paste this in here, and we'll just say down. So this is a downvote, and then for the text here, we'll just say downvote. So all I have to do is go ahead and add the choices option. So this is another parameter, so we'll just say choices. And we'll set the value to vote_type. So now that's going to be a drop-down list, and a user can simply select what they're trying to actually add in as their vote. So an upvote or a downvote. Now the last parameter or the last 2, we're just going to copy created. So we want an auto-created timestamp, and we want to override the ID to create that UUID. So let's paste that down here. And there we go. So that's the entire model. Now, to create the relationship itself, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment the project, and we'll add the owner later, and we'll have to rerun a migration for this. So for the projects here, what we're going to do, or for the project, we want to know what review or what project is this review being tied to. So let's just go ahead and do this. Models.foreign key. And then in here, we just specify the model that we're going to connect it to. So we just paste that in. So the model name, and then the next parameter we want to add is going to be on_delete. And this simply means that whenever a project is deleted, what do we want to do with all the children? So all the reviews connected to that project. What we could do is we can say models.setNull, which basically means that if a project's deleted, the review will be left alone and the project field right here will just be set to null. What I want to do is I just want to delete all the views, so we'll just say models.cascade. Cascade will delete all the reviews if the project is deleted. Now that's all we need to do for the review model as far as creating that relationship. I just want to do a few more things here. So really quick, I want to add in a string value, so we'll just set this right here. We'll create the string inherent from self here, or we'll pass in the self parameter. And in this case, let's just go ahead and return the vote or something like that. So we'll just do self.value. So we'll return the value, and that's going to be it for now. So let's go ahead and go into the tag model here, and we need to create a many-to-many relationship now. So for this, all we're going to do is create another model here, and this is going to be called tag. So let's just create all the attributes here. So we'll just go models.model, inherent from the model here, and then we want to set the name of the tag, and that's really going to be the only key value for this. So we'll just do models.charField, and we'll set the max length here. So we'll just do max_length, and that's going to be, let's just do 500. Maybe we have a tag, actually 200 will work. So I don't want it to be too big. Now for the last two values, we're just going to copy created and ID. This is going to be consistent throughout all of our models. So let's paste that in there. And then the string value, which will copy this function. And we need to fix that indentation. So in this case, we're just going to return the name value. So go ahead and return the name. And that is our tag model. Now to create the relationship, what we need to do here, instead of setting something like this where we use foreign key that establishes a one-to-many relationship, we're actually going to go to the project model here, and we're going to create a relationship to a tag here. So the tag can be connected to multiple models. That's why we don't need it created here. So let's go ahead and just underneath our source link, let's go ahead and add something here. So we're going to create an attribute called tags. And once we set that, we can do models.many-to-many field. And in here, all we do is pass in the tag model like that. So typically you can pass it in like that, but because our tag sits down here underneath the model, I could drag this and paste it above the project model. But instead of doing that, all I have to do is put in quotes like that, and that knows to reference it. It just delays it for a second. And then we're just going to add in blank. So this means that we don't need to select a tag, but the tag is now officially there. Now, that's it for our many-to-many relationship. So we create a model, we call that tag, and then we simply go to the, not parent, but the model that's going to connect to it and actually hold that. And we're just going to set many-to-many field, select the model name. Remember, you do not need to do quotes if the tag model is up here. So if we pasted that up here, then we can just do this, but because it's below, I need to put the quotes there. So you don't always have to do that. I just wanted to specify that. Now, before we actually run the migrations and actually see what this looks like, there's a few more things that I want to take care of here, and that is in the project here. I actually want to store the votes here. So anytime we do a review here, somebody votes, we want to store that value here. So what we're going to do is create another attribute, and we're just going to call this vote total. So we want to know the amount of times this project has been voted on, and this is going to be models.integer field. So it's an integer, it's just a number, and let's see, we're going to set the default. We want that as 0. So whenever a project is first created, we don't have any votes, we want to set that to 0. Then let's just do null, we'll set that to true. If anything, we'll modify this later, and then blank will also be true. Okay, so we have the vote total, and we also want to have a ratio. So we want to know what percentage of the votes were positive or negative. So what we're going to do is create something called vote ratio here. So we'll just do vote ratio, and we're going to leave the values also as an integer field. So I just wanted to add in these two fields. Let's save it. We modified our models. So what do we have to do here? We need to create our migrations. So my server is on. Let's go ahead and go Python manage.py make migrations. So what's going to happen here is inside of the migrations folder, we created another file, and it's going to tell us that we're prepping migrations for the 2 new models and the modified fields. Then we need to run those migrations, so we can do Python manage.py and migrate, just like that. Okay, so the migrations were applied, the models are in the database, and what we need to do is register them in the admin panel so we can actually start working with it. So we don't see the tag in the review, so we can go into the admin panel. Let's go into our app here, admin.py, add in review, and we'll also add in tag. So let's just copy and paste this, and let's just copy review and tag in here. So these are now registered in the admin panel, and let's take a look at how this actually looks in here. So we can see our tags here. We specify the name for the tag, that's it. A review, if we add it, we just see the body and the project that we're connecting it to. So let's go ahead and actually add some tags. So let's just say this is going to be a tag for, let's just do React here. Let's create another tag. We'll say Django, Python, and JavaScript. Okay, so we have some tags. Now let's look at that many-to-many relationship. So if we go to projects here, we can go to this e-commerce website, and to add these tags, we simply select these, so hit Control, and later on these will be checkboxes in a form, but we can add React and Django to this project. So now if I save it, we'll do continue editing here, and there we go. So now we have these 2 tags. Now to establish a many-to-one relationship in here, we now have this drop-down option. So we can say cool project. So cool project, we're leaving some kind of review. We want to give it an upvote, we like it. And we're simply going to select the project that we're connecting it to. Again, this will be dynamic in the forms. We're not going to actually have to select the project. When we're on that page and write a review, it will know where to go. But now we select a project, we have one option. So in this case, we can see one option, and we can write multiple reviews for one project. In the tags here, we create the tags, we go into the projects, and now the social network can add all the tags here. The profile website, let's say we only used Django here in Python, and there we go. So that is a many-to-many relationship, a many-to-one relationship, and then later on we will see a one-to-one relationship. So that's it for this video. In the next video, what we're gonna do is actually start querying the database, and we're gonna render some data out in these templates here. So right now we just have that static data from that Python list with all those dictionaries, but we're actually gonna render out what we see here, and we're going to be able to use real data inside of our view. So we'll go over making queries and then output this data.